This is the
Five Starr
Podcast.
Let me talk to you. Hi. What do you guys want to talk about? This is such good shit. Thanks, guys. Back to you.
Exhaustion. That's the word of the day right now. I am spent. Let me tell you. How in the world I'm going to have the energy to barrel through this one? Your guess is as good as mine. But I've run on fumes plenty before. And by golly, we got a WWE Premium Live special to review today. And a dang good one at that. So I won't let my tiredness get in the way of this one. Welcome to the Five Starr Wrestling Report. God, it's good to say that again. It's been a sporadic couple of weeks here on the channel. I did a Monday show last week, kind of abrupt. Took a couple Fridays off. And now we're back here for another lengthy Monday podcast. And it will be lengthy. We'll finally get back to normalcy here on the channel. My chaotic, hectic summer schedule has finally come to closure. Now I just patiently wait for an even busier fall schedule to kick in. What will hopefully be the last round of that. But I've been eager to get back into the swing of things here, so you know what they say. How can I miss you if you don't go away? Well, I missed it. So we're going to talk about SummerSlam. We're going to talk about Retro Raw and Retro NXT. Maybe against my better judgment. It was not the best week to return to wrestling recaps. I will say that much. But again, at least SummerSlam gave me some hope and promise headed into the fall season. We got a lot to cover, though, so I'm not even going to bother with the regular intros this week. You all know the drill by now. Subscribe, comment, rate, all that good stuff. Check us out on Rumble and YouTube every Monday and Friday for new shows and new podcasts. We will be getting back into the classic talk this coming Friday with the territory coverage. It's going to be like starting from square one all over again. But for now, it's WWF WWE talk. Now the question is, should I save my overall thoughts for the end of the show, or should I just lay it out on the table now? I know you're all waiting with bated breath to hear me just rip into this thing, admonish it, bury it, point out every last detail as to what was wrong with it. And in fact, I'm not going to do that. Because believe it or not, the old bitter, disgruntled wrestling fan talking here, I thought this was a really fun show. I wouldn't really say there were any matches on the pay-per-view that I detested. There was one that I used as my semi-piss break / dinner break, because you knew I needed one of those at some point. But other than taking about 10 minutes to fix a meal for the night, I was pretty much glued to the couch. Now, is that to say the show was a memorable classic? I don't think I'd go that far. It is probably one of the better SummerSlams I can recall in a long-ass time. The one thing that continues to stand out with WWE is the creative liberty they're taking with a lot of the production, the camera shots, the small little tweaks they do to make it look more compact, doing away with all those nauseating zoom-ins and camera cuts that make you motion sick. I mean, those are the kinds of things that made WWE almost unwatchable in the last 10 to 15 years. All the rapid-fire, shaky camera cuts that just make you want to vomit. I don't know how I feel about the whole referee cam they tried out for this thing. I don't think that one stuck the landing all that well. Granted, they didn't overexpose it to the point where it just made you angry. But they got some fleshing out to do on that one. Didn't WCW experiment around with a referee cam at one point? Didn't it last like a month before they finally said, all right, that's enough of that hot garbage? Like I said, I'm all for trying stuff. The ring intros are really cool. When they had Samantha Irvin standing there in the middle, and they do the slow camera pan to show the wrestlers on both sides of her. But just the way that looked visually, it was a nice touch. So yeah, thumbs up for production on this one. Now we'll go ahead and get into the card here. And I'll be the first to tell you, I have not been following any part of this Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Dirty Dom love triangle stuff. But there was a part of me that kind of wanted to see how it would all play out. I don't know. Just the whole idea of seeing Dom turn on Mommy and side with the slutty blonde who's been trying to get into his pants for months. There's definitely some kinky shit going on with that. I think a lot of dem boys can get behind it. Even though I don't really find Liv all that attractive. I also just kind of wanted to see Rhea beat the shit out of Liv Morgan. When it comes to the actual work here, I've been highly critical of Liv Morgan over the years. 99% of the time, I find myself either skipping over her matches or just not really having anything constructive to say about her, period. She's very small. I don't buy her as someone who could believably kick tail in any situation. The whole presentation of her just never clicked with me. I don't get it. Some people like her, whatever. With that said, the clips that I have seen of her interacting with Rhea and Dom, her just acting like a total slut and trying to cultivate all these mind games to fuck around with those two, trying to drive a wedge in their relationship, literally just to manipulate Dom and make Rhea's life a living hell. That's actually something I can get behind. Because at least in that circumstance, the story being presented is when Rhea finally gets her hands on this little bimbo, it's going to be the end of her. And that is ideally how a Liv Morgan should be presented. She's a maniacal, manipulative little twat that's trying to seek attention and just be annoying. She's a chicken shit. You want to see her get her ass kicked. And like the whole story in the match at the beginning where she's running from Rhea and playing the cat and mouse game on the floor. Obviously they're milking the eventual moment when Rhea finally outsmarts her and gets her hands on her. And of course, the other ongoing story centering around the whole shoulder injury that Rhea sustained in that backstage altercation months back, where she got rammed into a wall by Liv and legitimately separated her shoulder. So that led to the whole thing where they had to strip her of the belt. Liv won the thing in some kind of battle royal on TV or whatever it was. She was going around boinking Dom for weeks and Rhea wasn't there to see it. All of this actually makes reasonable sense in the context of how the talents are being presented. And so Rhea accidentally re-injures her shoulder here. She sells for a bit while Liv works over the arm. You eventually get the big moment where Rhea fires up on her and rams her shoulder into the announce desk to pop it back in place. All the announcers simultaneously puke into a barf bucket at the sight of it. Then you get the whole thing at the end where Rhea goes to grab a chair because she's fed up with Liv's bullshit. But Dirty Dom's at ringside buying his time and waiting for his moment to strike. So he tries to stop Rhea from using the chair, telling her she can't win the belt that way. Of course, they do the near fall spot where Liv hits her sloppy-looking finish on Rhea, but only gets a 2 count. And that's when Dom grabs the chair again, slides it into the ring, while also drawing Liv's attention to it peripherally. That was actually a really good camera shot, because that was the moment where I realized, yup, Dom is about to fuck Rhea here. Figuratively speaking. Well, Dom's literally about to fuck Liv by the time this thing is over. But this is the turning point. So while Dom's drawing the ref's attention, Liv goes over and hits her finish on Rhea again, this time on the chair. Bob's your uncle. 1, 2, 3. Liv retains the belt. And there's all the confusion with the announcers on whether or not Dom meant to slide the chair into the ring. Still kind of playing up the idea that Dom mistakenly cost Rhea the belt, because I guess it's been another ongoing theme here in the story. Well, as it turns out, it was deliberate. The hot blonde chick finally got the Dom. And that ending was just fucking awesome, man. Just fucking awesome. Dom helping Liv up afterwards and then jamming his tongue down her throat. Michael Cole going, Dom! You two-faced sorry son of a bitch! He's absolutely died. Pat McAfee a few minutes later, Dom! Can I say it? You piece of shit! And look, obviously that's where this is all going. Everybody could see the Dom heel turn coming a mile away. Him hooking up with Liv in the end. We all know how the male anatomy works. Dom's been scoping those tits and ass out for months. And he finally said, you know, all of a sudden I'm loving blondes a whole lot more. So this is all well done. Like, even the commentators flipping out afterwards. The way they sold everything. The crowd all gasping and shitting themselves the minute they saw Dom and Liv locking lips together. Poor Rhea's out there just sitting in the ring heartbroken and completely dejected. I could not have booked this any better if I tried. They totally nailed the landing here. Again, even if I don't really have any emotional attachment to the feud personally, the end result was pretty much what everybody was waiting for. Liv going over was kind of a formality. You know, they needed to officially align Dom with Liv to move the chapter in the story forward. So, now that they've done that, well, we wait and see how Mommy responds. Telling you, man, if the end result is Rhea Ripley versus Dom Mysterio in some kind of intergender match at WrestleMania next year, I mean, that'll be the first intergender match since watching China where I'll actually buy the idea that the man's goose is cooked. So again, Liv's not my cup of tea, but this is easily the best performance she's ever had in WWE since I started watching her. You know, Rhea, goes without saying. She's awesome. Dom's the fucking man. You know, beyond me groaning at the idea that this Judgment Day faction is still going to be a thing going forward, now with somewhat different crew members, I guess, I really did not take fault with anything that happened here. And like, even the match itself, I thought it was pretty good too. Liv was not bad here. She did fine. Really excellent start to the show. And I was kind of skeptical at first. When they played Rhea's music, I was like, oh God, we're starting with a girls match already out of the gate. But you know what? They exceeded my expectations. So way to go, ladies. And Dom. So after we establish that the Judgment Day's got a search warrant out for Dom's body, we eventually go back to the ring for Braun Breaker versus Sami Zayn for the IC title. Again, I don't watch Raw. I have not been tracking the fallout to the match these guys had the other month. I knew it was a rematch. Just wasn't really sure how they were interacting together on TV and promos or angles. Obviously, this was plainly set up as Braun's match to win. Like, you can't have the guy drop 2 straight falls to Sami for the belt and not look weak coming out of it. Especially after last month. And, I mean, this was practically what I originally envisioned their Money in the Bank match to be. Braun smash over, kicks the shit out of Sami for like 80% of it, and he wins in very convincing fashion. It's exactly what happened here. The whole thing went, what, maybe 5 minutes, if that? Braun looked like $1 million. I still have no idea how he does that hang time Hurricane Rana out of the corner. God, the core strength it takes to get his knees to be stable like that. It's almost incredible. Like, even when Scott Steiner used to hit that move back in the day, he did not get that kind of hang time. That guy's insane. I was a little disappointed with the finishing sequence. Not that it wasn't executed well. It seemed kind of flat to me. Like, Breaker comes barreling out of the corner with that massive spear out of nowhere. The crowd goes nuts for it. And then he hits another big spear off the ropes, which got a moderately decent pop. But that was the actual finish. It just... meh. Wasn't a big fan of that. But again, it was the right result. Braun clearly needed to win the belt here. You're trying to get over a young talent. I mean, everybody figures that Braun's going to be one of the next breakout top guys in this company in the next 5 to 10 years, if he stays healthy enough. This is how you elevate younger stars and set them up for big success. At least traditionally, it's how WWE's done it. Big 4 pay-per-view. Got a title on the line. Braun's wrestling an established name in WWE that's been around for years. Put over Braun in dominant-like fashion. It was perfect. So, I guess the question really boils down to this then. If you were just going to have Braun beat Sami for the belt a month after you already did the match of Money in the Bank, why the hell did you have Sami win clean in the first place? You know? Babyface goes over clean in round 1. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of rematching? That's why I hated that finish to Money in the Bank so much. Like, I get the idea of wanting to save the title win for a bigger stage. So, okay, fine. Just don't have Sami pin Braun's shoulders down. Give Braun some kind of outing. DQ, count out. Something. I hated that Money in the Bank finish so much because it made absolutely no sense. And now that I have some context a month later, seeing what they did here at SummerSlam, I hate that finish even more now. That Money in the Bank match, it was the wrong match to do with the wrong result. Go listen to my review the other month. I absolutely skewered the booking in that thing because it was not the right kind of match for these guys to have. This was the match they needed to have a month ago. Like, again, if you had to do the match a month before SummerSlam for whatever reason, Do a finish that doesn't involve Braun losing clean. Protect the guy. That's all I'm saying. Beyond that, it's another thumbs up segment. Was the match great? No. But I don't think it needed to be. You know, the end result was the only thing that mattered. And they got it right this time. Now we just see how Braun fares as a singles champion and if WWE is actually serious about running with him as a future top prospect. Unlike what they did with Austin Theory now, where he's just a comedy goof bumping around with his stooge friend Grayson Fodder. So now we flip the page to the other mid-card men's belt. For this round, it's Logan Paul versus LA Knight. Yeah. The match has kind of been in the works for a long time now. I mean, I thought they were setting this thing up as early as WrestleMania this past year. But they saved it till SummerSlam, which is fine. At least we're actually getting it. I mean, I wish I had the ability to watch those goddamn promo packages on Peacock. Because I wanted to see the promo face-offs with these two. That was like the sole purpose of me even wanting to see the program to begin with. I guess the blame can be put on me for doing away with all the SmackDown reviews. I missed out on those Logan Paul LA Knight promo battles. You know, I like the whole thing at the beginning here with Knight showing up in Logan's custom Prime truck or whatever it was. You know, apparently Knight hijacked it on the Go Home show or something. So he shows up here. He bludgeons the neon blue windows with a baseball bat. Then he starts taunting Logan with a promo as he's walking down to the ring. I don't know if anybody else notices this. Subtle little things that I pick up on because I'm very observant. You ever notice that LA Knight's got that Steve Austin approach with the way he walks? You know, the strut, the head bopping. He's definitely got a swag. Maybe it's more like The Rock, too. Like heel Rock back in the day. Kind of a toss-up between one of those two. It's just something I always notice when he walks down to the ring. This match is so freaking awesome, though, dude. Like, I'm always one to criticize modern wrestling matches for unnecessary jump starts. But if you were going to have one on the show, this was the match to do it with. You know, at least that way you can let them brawl on the floor without me having to reprimand the idiot referee for uninitiated 10 counts. I did kind of feel bad for poor Knight when he tried to give Paul the Fireman's Carry neckbreaker onto the announce table. The fucking thing didn't break. I mean, you could tell that was the pre-planned spot. But they recovered. They got in there and had a good old-fashioned mean guy fight. The announcers even pointed out, too, at one point, you know, Logan had this giant mouse under his eye. I mean, they were really going after each other here. I'm thinking LA Knight may have stiffed him on a couple of those jabs. What I loved about the match, though, is that even though they kept things mostly simple, and they were just firing back and forth with punches and jabs for a lot of it, nothing ever looked phony. You know, they weren't doing those weak-ass windmill punches or those goofy synchronized rapid-fire punches where neither guy registers anything. I saw a little bit of that in the Punk-Drew McIntyre match, which kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But here, it looked like two guys having a real fight. Or at least as real as you can make it in the confines of a professional wrestling match. By far, one of the highlights of this thing for me, Logan Paul does an amazing-looking springboard backflip out to the floor. Looked flawless with the way he landed on Knight. Crowd goes apeshit for it. And then a few seconds later, as they're showing the replay, the fans cannot help themselves. They have to all chant, "You still suck." Because Logan Paul actually has real heat. Note that. I liked that they milked the drama of the near falls. Nothing ever got excessive. I think both guys individually got very close near falls on each other after their high impact spots. They sold the reaction. The top rope brainbuster that Knight gave to Paul, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it looked great regardless. Again, kind of reflecting back on what I said about the IC title match. Was it perfect? No. And in fact, this might be an opportune time for me to point out one of my ongoing criticisms with Logan Paul matches. This has been a thing for years now with him. I get it. We're all apparently just supposed to know who all the celebrities are that hang around with him at ringside and constantly feed him gimmicks to help him cheat. Here's what I hate about it. Number one, I don't know who these people are. I don't care who these people are. And it constantly distracts from the action because of the fact that I don't know and or care who these people are. Because they're usually never integral parts of the story to begin with. They're just dudes. They're friends of Logan Paul. Colleagues, if you will. And number two, more importantly, knowing that these fuckers are always trying to help Logan Paul in high-stakes critical matches, don't you think at some point Adam Pearce or Nick Aldis or, God forbid, even Triple H would just have security escort these goons away from ringside before they have a chance to do anything? That way we can just prevent the obvious. We know they're going to interfere. They do it every God-blessed time. Why is this something that continues to happen? Moreover, why do they let this continue to happen? And in fact, here's an even better question. Why are these idiots permitted to jump the guardrail and interact with the talent willy-nilly? Are they contracted WWE employees? I would be willing to bet the answer is no. So by all accounts, shouldn't they all be arrested? Shouldn't they be taken away in handcuffs and thrown in jail? Y'all would think. But apparently that is something that has still gone over management's heads. But I know, they had to have the one rapper dude feed Logan the set of brass knucks, which the camera made sure to zoom in on to let God and everybody know, this man has brass knuckles. Apparently the ref did not see it on the massive fucking Jumbotron. Again, continuity. The show is not perfect. I actually thought they were going to go for the old school Tully Dusty finish with the brass knucks, where Knight tries to elevate Paul over the top rope, but he eats a brass knuck shot to the face. Then the heel falls on top of the babyface and pins him. That is not what happened, though. Instead, LA Knight eats a brass knuck shot to the face, and then, straight out of the playbook of John Felix Anthony Cena, Knight springs to his feet, catches Paul, who tries to go for that springboard clothesline, and then Knight just hits BFT and pins Logan to win the belt. So that is now our second title change in back-to-back matches. Again, really big moment for LA Knight here. Winning the U.S. title at SummerSlam in a high-profile, high-stakes match. I'm glad they finally gave the guy something. Christ, he's been sitting around playing with his dick since the loss to Roman last year in Saudi. I had about given up hope they were ever going to do anything with him after that all went down. But they switched the belt. I can't say I've really been blown away by Logan's reign as U.S. champion. It's had its moments, but he just didn't really seem to be doing much with it, I think they had missed out on multiple opportunities to show him making guest appearances on talk shows and podcasts, just being all smug about the fact that he's a champion in WWE, but he gets to do it on a part-time basis because he's Logan Paul. He's not like all the other jabronis that work full-time schedules. They kind of missed the boat on some big-time stuff there. And it's disappointing because I expected so much more out of the title reign than what we got. Instead, he won from, who the hell did he beat? Was it Ray? Maybe it was Ricochet. I don't remember. But he won it. Really only sporadically defended it on the premium live specials throughout 2024. I remember he did that three-way at WrestleMania with Owens and Orton, which sort of petered out. There was the whole title versus title thing with Cody, which Logan lost. Because obviously they weren't going to have Logan win the WWE title yet. And now he just drops it to LA Knight. I mean, it wasn't a bad title reign. Just they could have done more with it. But what's done is done. LA Knight gets his big moment. Actually, that's 2 consecutive Big Four pay-per-view wins for him, right? Yeah, because he got the win over AJ at WrestleMania. And now he gets this one here at SummerSlam. So kudos to him. We'll see where they go from here. So at this point, it was about 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I almost said a.m. Probably felt like 8:30 a.m. by the time the show was over. But, it was getting late. I had not eaten dinner by that point. So when I saw the next match on the card was Nia Jax versus Bayley for one of the other women's titles, I said, you know what? No offense to Bayley, but the show's been relatively good thus far. I've really enjoyed myself. I am not about to let it get ruined by the uncharismatic block of wood that is Nia fucking Jax. So I had this on in the background while I was eating dinner. I did see the delayed powerbomb spot out of the corner that Bayley gave to Nia. That was cool. And like all the subsequent stuff that led up to the finish where Tiffany Stratton ran out with a briefcase, teased the cash in, but got decked in the face. And, I remember Nia Jax killed Bayley with a couple power bombs and then hit her bonsai drop for the 3. I mainly stuck around to see if Tiffany would clock Nia in the back of the head with the briefcase and then do the cash in there. But apparently they want to do something with her and Nia as a tag team, which, okay, whatever. I don't really care. I figured Nia was probably going to win here. She won Queen of the Ring back a few months. I mean, you all know Rock's got some push and pull with creative right now, since he's a member of the board. So he probably had some influence in this finish decision. What you get with Nia is what you see. She's not very good in the ring. Her promos are the shits. She's got the personality of rotting flesh. But they're going to keep running with her. So we all have to eat it. I don't know. Yeah, I guess from their vantage point, they know she's going to get heat as the heel champion on SmackDown. So apparently that's what they want. It is kind of weird to have 2 heel girls champions on completely opposite brands. I mean, we'll see who they have lined up to challenge her. Having Tiffany lurk around as her friend, I mean, it is going to have people raising an eyebrow for the time being. I mean, when she does cash that briefcase in on Nia, it's going to get a massive reaction. So we'll see. So then we had the big one. The match 8 months in the making. Dating all the way back to the Royal Rumble this year. The freak injury that put CM Punk on the shelf and threw all their original WrestleMania plans into the drain. Now we are here in August of 2024. And whether they ever intended to feud CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, I'm glad this fell into their laps the way it did. Because this has been the best thing about WWE in the entire year. And up until Saturday night, Punk has never wrestled a single solitary match since the WWE return last November. Discount the one Royal Rumble appearance. That's amazing. They've been able to keep this feud hot and fresh for 8 months. And the entire thing has been centered around Punk fucking over Drew month after month after month. You know, the WrestleMania angle where Drew won the strap from Seth, only to lose it like 5 minutes later after he got in Punk's face and Priest cashed in on him. The Clash of the Castle deal where Punk disguised himself as the referee and drew the Phantom Cow when Drew had the visual pin on Priest. Everything that led up to the finish there. The whole Money in the Bank fiasco where Drew won the briefcase, tried to cash in that same night, and then Punk screwed him again. Like, this has been a really well-crafted timeline. And all the promos on TV where Punk's been calling McIntyre an idiot, saying that he's the one that screwed himself because he's a self-entitled prick. You know, McIntyre vowing to end Punk's career once and for all once he gets medically cleared. This is the kind of animosity that you can buy. That you really believe these two want to rip each other's heads off. That they can't stand one another. And yeah, there's the whole Seth Rollins thing, which I'll talk about. That had its own little wrinkle, I guess. You know, he has history with both these guys. I wasn't against the idea of Rollins being the special guest ref here. It does have some story implication for later on, which is why they obviously did it. They needed to have Seth involved here to further along whatever chapter they're going to in the next part of the feud. You know, they definitely wanted to try to channel some Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels elements from SummerSlam 97 here. Commentators mentioned that here, which, I mean, I don't really believe that Seth and Punk hate each other to the same degree that Bret and Shawn hated each other. But again, I get what they were going for. Overall, it was a really well-told story with a lot of smoke and mirrors to cover up for the fact that Punk probably was a little uneasy in his first match back. And that's not a knock on the guy. I don't think he wanted to do too much because he's not trying to risk anything right now. That's mostly what I took away from the action. You know, I guess there's always going to be that part of me that'll continue to watch CM Punk matches on pins and needles for the time being. It's kind of like how I used to view Bryan Danielson matches over a decade ago, where he was going through the same series of injury problems, one after the other. The guy could not stay healthy. You know, eventually forced him into early retirement because WWE wouldn't clear him. Like every time you saw him get back in the ring, you cringed every time you saw him take a bump. I wasn't that anxious here, but there were moments where I was watching and I'm thinking, just let Punk get through this thing unscathed. And it sucks that I even have that thought cross my mind, because I'm a big CM Punk fan. But going by his track record since the AEW run, can you blame me? So going back to what I said a minute ago, was this a technical classic masterpiece that set the stages for a newfound Dave Meltzer 8-star rating system? No. But the match made sense. It was coherent. It had ebb and flow. Everybody worked their roles exactly how they needed to. You had Seth here as the quote-unquote impartial official, saying he was going to call that baby right down the middle, but that he'd also give the boys some leeway because I mean, fuck it, he doesn't like either of them either. So he's fine if they go out there and kill each other and put the other in a coma. That's one less asshole for him to deal with. And yeah, you could probably say Seth became the focal point during key portions of the match. It's not like he was just super kicking guys left and right and just being a total jag-off. He got confrontational when he needed to. He let Drew and Punk basically do whatever they wanted. When they were fighting on the floor, Seth was kind of perched on the top turnbuckle, lounging back. Like at one point, he went to tie his shoe, pretending like he couldn't see what was happening. Small little things, you know? And Drew was very careful with Punk. Even when he was working him over and getting the heat, which, looking back, was like 95% of the match, it was mostly just him chopping the shit out of Punk, trash talking. He wasn't dumping Punk out to the floor face first or suplexing him through furniture or anything like that. I love the stuff with the bracelet. They had already done the angle on TV where Drew laid out Punk in his hometown and stole the bracelet that his daughter made for him. They'd been working that into the program. So you get the big angle where after Punk makes the comeback, he tries to lock Drew in the Anaconda Vice, but Punk looks down and sees the bracelet on Drew's wrist. So he allows himself to be vulnerable for long enough so Drew can take advantage. Hits him with the Claymore for a near fall. They had teased the Future Shock a couple times here. The same move that injured Punk back at the Rumble. But they eventually build to another dramatic spot here where Punk sees that Seth is now wearing the bracelet. And his claim is that he just picked it up to get it out of the way, but Punk's not buying it because he thinks Seth is fucking with him. So those two go at it. There's a spot where Drew bonks Punk into Seth, who takes a bump. And then Punk gives Drew the GTS for a visual 3 count. But Seth is late getting in to count the fall. So that leads to more bickering. And that ends up becoming the turning point. Because Rollins eventually gets in Punk's face and screams something to the extent of, "It's not all about you, asshole." And that's when Punk scoops up Rollins and hits him with the GTS. Big pop for that. Boom, boom. Punk gets punted in the gonads by Drew. He sets him up for the Claymore. Hits Punk with it. 1, 2, 3. And, well, the story the announcers told by the end of it was, you hate to say it, but Punk has no one to blame but himself. And that really was the focal point of the story by the end. All those months where Punk was claiming that Drew was the emotional asshole, that he was fighting on a reaction and not using his brain. Well, now that story's flipped on its head. When the moment mattered, Punk ended up being the cause of his own downfall. It's really good stuff. Again, was Seth Rollins a little overbearing at times? Maybe a little too much involvement? Probably. Did he wind up becoming more of the centerpiece to this than Punk and Drew? Arguably, yes. I know some people are going to take issue with that. Wrestling Observer. But I'm not going to poon it. Because it had a purpose. Honestly, if you want me to be blunt, I much prefer Seth doing stuff like this as opposed to watching his fucking wrestling matches. Because I hate Seth's matches. I did a huge rant about that the other month during one of my come to Jesus moments as a bitter wrestling fan in 2024. But I stand by it. I'm telling you, man, you see one Seth Rollins match in WWE, you've seen them all. So hey, a little bit of a change of pace here for once. And I'm okay with that. I mean, Drew absolutely needed this win more than Punk. So the end result was precisely what needed to happen. And I imagine it'll set up some kind of rematch for the next PLE. Possibly even carrying into the fall season. I mean, the whole thing's been well done. I will go out of my way to watch the clips of CM Punk and Drew McIntyre angles. because they always hit the mark. You know, is this one going to win match of the year? Highly doubt it. I probably wouldn't even really consider this among the top 10 best matches of the year so far. But again, important to note, not every fucking match needs to be an instant classic. Sometimes it really is about saving the bigger moments for when they actually matter. They did just enough here to leave you wanting more. And that's why I enjoyed it so much. Because now I want to see how they carry this over into September and October. Maybe even November and December if they really want to stretch it out that long. By the way, I had to throw this in real quick. I am not one to linger on these infomercial plugs during the video package segments. But WWE Call of Duty, the most iconic thing I have ever seen. I was fucking dying watching Rey Mysterio out there with a machine gun while also giving guys Hurricane Ranas. Rey's got his priorities straight, dude. We're on the battlefield, boys. Fuck the weaponry. I'm going to use Lucha to get the job done. If you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube WWE Call of Duty. You will not be disappointed. So that now brings us to Damian Priest and Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think most people figured this was going to be the big title program for SummerSlam. At least when it came to the World Heavyweight title. But it makes sense. Gunther won King of the Ring. This was kind of his match to win. I guess if you're prone to being bummed out by predictability, you may have had a hard time getting into it. Unless you really wanted to see Gunther win the strap here. I don't know. I liked the match. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I wasn't even really sour on it because of the predictability nature. I think I mainly fall into the camp now where I've been over this Judgment Day stuff for so long now. Whenever I see Damian Priest in a major championship title defense, I just groan. Because I know somehow, some way, Finn Balor's going to get involved or do something to detract from the action. And like now it's to the point where you expect it because they've been teasing the breakup with this faction for so long now. So while the action here is good, you know, I love seeing two giant pissed off athletes beat the shit out of one another. And there's always going to be a market for that in wrestling. I just knew by the end of it, I'm expecting a Balor run-in anyway. So by that point, I'm just counting down the clock waiting for it to happen. And in terms of the notable spots, you know, aside from Gunther getting legit cut open on his chest and bleeding like a stuffed pig, and there really wasn't a whole lot I wrote down. Priest made his big comeback, gave Gunther the South of Heaven choke slam, which did not look good with the spot they set up afterwards. They were way out of position for what they were trying to set up. So in order for them to do the spot where Balor reaches in and then pulls Gunther's foot on the bottom rope, Priest legitimately had to roll Gunther toward the ropes before attempting to pin him. I saw that and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Pull him to the center of the ring so the guy cannot reach out and grab the rope. But no, Priest is a goddamn idiot. So he voluntarily pushed Gunther closer to the ring apron, making it perfectly accessible for Balor to reach in and assist Gunther, which is exactly what happened. And they do the long dramatic sequence where Balor turns his back to the ring with what I typically like to call Finny Stank Face, where he tries to look all mad and grimace, but he just kind of looks constipated. And, well, first they do the spot where Gunther has Priest in the sleeper hold, but Priest won't go out. So he fights out of it, tries to reach out and goozle Balor by the throat, but Gunther pulls Priest back in, locks in the sleeper a second time, and then eventually Priest goes out. Okay. A little overboard with the finishing sequence there, but, it was pretty evident Gunther was going over as soon as Balor got involved. And that really was another big centerpiece of the story for the show, right? The implosion of the Judgment Day. Both matches that featured Judgment Day teammates resulted in one member turning on the other in some capacity. Now, while I wouldn't really say I'm craving a Damian Priest-Finn Balor singles feud right now, and that's kind of a regression for Priest in terms of the pecking order on the card. No offense to Balor, but we all kind of figured Balor would end up screwing Priest eventually, right? Again, they teased it forever. This was the time to blow it off. Gunther wins his first major WWE World's Heavyweight Championship. Big deal there. Granted, it's still the secondary title when you put it in conjunction with what Cody's doing on SmackDown. But you got to start somewhere. I expect we'll see Gunther holding onto that strap for a very long time, barring some kind of unforeseen incident. At the earliest, I would foresee him dropping the strap at WrestleMania next year. Who that opponent would be, I have no idea. But I don't think this will be a short-term title reign. I really wasn't blown away with the booking of Priest as the World Heavyweight Champion. The Judgment Day stuff really detracted from his momentum. He didn't really seem to click with me as a world champion. A lot of his title defenses were kind of meh. So I was more than okay with them doing the title switch here. It is kind of strange timing, though, when you consider that they're about to put out a Damian Priest bio special on Peacock. And like a day or two before that's supposed to air, he loses the belt to Gunther here at SummerSlam. Very odd timing. But it's not to say they couldn't revisit him as a world champion later on. They just need to have him ditch the rest of the Judgment Day and be on his own. Away from all the other jabronis. Again, no offense to Finn. So after they wasted about 10 minutes of our lives with really bad R-Truth and Miz comedy, and them dropping Jelly Roll's fat ass in there to chokeslam Austin Theory and Grayson Fodder, we finally arrive at the main event. For the WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes defends against Solo Sikoa. Was it the title feud I was initially expecting? No. I had for sure thought they were going in the direction of Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton. The writing's been on the wall with that for months. But I guess they want to hold off on it for a while longer. At least through whatever they have booked for War Games. So it's Solo Sikoa getting the match instead. And, hey, give the guy credit. Solo's been a main roster guy for, a little under 3 years? This is a pretty big defining moment to get a main event spot at SummerSlam for a major world title. Even though we didn't win. Spoiler. I can't think of too many other guys that made that kind of progress that soon on the main roster. The first name that comes to mind is Brock. Didn't he main event SummerSlam after only debuting in WWE after 4 or 5 months? And in that case, he actually won the title. I think he beat The Rock. And I know what people are going to immediately say. Solo didn't really do anything to impress people. He was kind of plodding and boring to watch. Yeah. I'm not going to say he lit the world ablaze with his performance here. But at the same time, he and Cody worked very well together. They didn't visually fuck up anything from what I could see. It was a very steady back and forth title match. Everything they did up until the disastrous finish, it was kept mostly basic and simple. Tell you what, Solo did a much better job in his performance here than Tonga Loa did for his 45-second flurry of offense. Dude. I honestly need to know. I'm not even trying to be a dick about it. How in the world do you fuck up missing the corner turnbuckle? Loa tries to sandwich Cody into the corner buckle, and he missed. And he did not miss by an inch and a half. He missed by 10 fucking yards at the least. I don't even know what to say. I mean, there's probably a valid reason he's mostly been kept out of the ring during the key bloodline matches. Unfortunately, when you factor in everything that happened with Jacob Fatu at the end here, that probably means Tonga Loa is going to be wrestling more frequently. And that sucks. So, well, I guess I didn't mention here, it's bloodline rules. So that means all the heels can interfere whenever they please. So again, a question that I mention every time they do stipulation matches like this. If it's no DQ, if it's anything goes, why do the heels wait until more than halfway through the match to hit the ring? Just interfere after the fucking bell sounds. You idiots. So then we get the comical moment of the match, where as the heels are decimating Cody, they have Randy Orton and Kevin Owens hit the ring to make the save. Not at the same time, though, because that would make too much sense. They have to have Owens run out first so he can get his ass kicked. And then Orton finally comes down to help out his bud. Jogging at what I can merely best describe as a glacial pace. Randy's just casually strolling down to the ring while his friends are getting massacred. He's high-fiving fans. He's all happy. Surprised he didn't stop to sign a few autographs on his way down there. And of course, it's a massive football stadium. They are in Cleveland. So that's why it's so comical watching KO and Orton run down to the ring. The aisleway to connect the ring from the actual back, it's a good 40 yards. So as the babyfaces are running down, gassing themselves out in the process, the heels just have to stand there patiently waiting for 5 minutes for these idiot babyfaces to hit the ring. And the heels still get their ass kicked. Something tells me this could have been thought out a little better in the creative meeting. So Orton and Owens run off the Tongans. They disappear into the crowd, never to be seen again. But the match has to continue because everybody's waiting for Jacob Fatu to get involved. Which ended up happening. And, yeah. This did not go according to plan. So, I think the idea was that Jacob Fatu was supposed to give Cody the big splash to the announce table. And, he and Solo would double team Cody until, boom, we hear tribal chief music and Roman Reigns makes his way down. What we had instead was Fatu gives Cody the big splash from the top turnbuckle. And I don't even know how the hell this happened. Somehow Fatu came down and either smashed his ankle against the corner of the table before it fully broke, or he just landed wrong and completely shattered his ankle. But he's visibly fucked. He's screaming in agony. Can't even stand. Solo's looking around like, shit, what do we do now? Fucking Jacob Fatu has to be the veteran to kick in and go, finish him, you idiot. Get in the ring. Which is coded language for, let Cody call it. You'll figure out some kind of audible. Because I ain't helping. So they do some more stuff in the ring. It's obvious the match is completely falling apart now because everything they had pre-planned with Fatu just went up in smoke. So Cody gives Solo the cutter. Both guys are just laying motionless for a minute. And then they cue up Roman's music. So Roman does the slow, dramatic walk down the aisleway. And the idea they're trying to play in everybody's head is that he's going to help out Solo. But in fact, it is a swerve. He gets in the ring. He decks Solo with a Superman punch. Crowd goes absolutely batshit. Gives Solo the big spear out of the corner. Cody's looking on dumbfounded. He can't believe what's happening. Roman kind of looks over his shoulder, giving him that small nod of approval, like, finish him, boy. And then Cody scoops up Solo. Hits Crossroads. 1, 2, 3. And they actually had a great camera shot on Roman as he has his back turned in the aisleway. He's still a little unsure about it. Kind of a bittersweet moment for him where he's thinking, did I do the right thing? And the more he stands there and lingers on it, he hears the crowd going crazy for Cody. Then he confidently turns around and walks up the ramp saying, yeah, I did the right thing. That was really cool. I dug that. Considering the history with Roman and Cody, all their issues dating back over 2 years, this could have been the moment where the Bloodline recaptured the gold and brought the WWE title back to the family. But Roman knew this wasn't the same Bloodline he was running prior to WrestleMania. This was Solo's version of the Bloodline. He had already essentially tried to blacklist Roman from the group. They took out Paul E. Solo brought in all these new members without Roman's consulting. So by all accounts, this was Roman's revenge plan. Getting back at Solo for all the damage he caused. Him stepping out of line and trying to claim himself as the new head of the table. Or the tribal chief, whatever we're calling it. God, it's just so unfortunate that it all comes at the expense of knowing Fatu's injured now. And it's probably going to require them to shift gears on SmackDown, realizing they're down a core member of the Bloodline. Depending on the extent of the injury, that might mess up their War Games plan. Somebody can help me out. What's the timestamp of an ankle fracture recovery? Certainly not under 2 months. Especially if it requires surgery. That'll be at least 3 to 4. Maybe longer. I guess if they're desperate, they could bring Jimmy back and make him the replacement for the heels. The problem is they'd somehow have to explain how they initially took out Jimmy to begin with. Because that's going back a while. I don't think we've seen Jimmy Uso since Tama Tonga debuted. And that whole attack was orchestrated by Solo to begin with. So we'll see. It's definitely going to throw a monkey wrench into their plans. But if there's one thing WWE does extremely well, it's keeping people guessing. All in all, I really found the show enjoyable. You all know me. If you've been following this channel for a while, I am not a glass half full kind of wrestling fan. I'm as bitter, disgruntled, and jaded as they come. Here in my mid-30s. But I looked up and down the card. All the matches had something good to take away. The storylines were well executed. A lot of things were arguably more advancement over conclusion. But we had some major title changes happen. Big moments that kind of lead into the next WWE special. I honestly don't remember the last time I enjoyed a WWE PLE like I did this one. Maybe it's because I took a week to not drown myself in wrestling content. I mean, not reviewing SmackDown has been a big weight lifted off my shoulder because I just really wasn't finding much value in it anymore. So I don't know. Maybe I was in a good mood. I do not expect the next special to be like this one. But I will give SummerSlam 2024 a big old thumbs up. Maybe even 2 thumbs up. Because I'm a fair man. For now, though, we're going to shift gears and look at some not-so-good WWF wrestling content. WWF Raw from 1995. Here we go. I swear to God, dude. If I hear Vince McMahon use the word seesaw on this show one more time, I'm going to rip my ears off. It took less than 30 seconds this week. Of all ways to describe last week's tag team title match, Vince could not help himself. He had to use the term seesaw. Has this man heard of a dictionary? Synonyms. Use them. So on the subject of that whole matter, that was last week's cliffhanger headed into this program. We had a non-finish in the WWF Tag Title match with Yoko and Owen versus Razor and Savio. So right at the top of the show this week, they gave us essentially part 2. And if last week's match was reasonably good, considering the standards of most Raw matches these days, this one was just flat out boring and slow. Literally, I did not write a single thing down about this match until the last few minutes after Savio got the hot tag. There was nothing to say about it. It was babyface flurry at the beginning. Heels target Razor for the heat. At which point it was a hit a move, chin lock. Hit a move, chin lock. Hit another move, chin lock, repeat. It was almost a carbon copy of everything I said last week when they had the first round. It absolutely baffles me when I go back and see this company's infatuation with Savio Vega around this time. I mentioned before, I can get behind the idea of wanting to have some Caribbean or Latino representation in the company, try to appeal to different markets. But Savio Vega, of all people, even Puerto Rican fans did not give a fuck about Savio Vega. And he sure was not over with the American market, tell you that much. So they do some stuff at the end. Owen and Razor end up fighting out to the floor after the heels cut off Savio. And right before Yoko went to make a cover, he gave Savio the Samoan drop right on top of the guy's shoulder. So that had to have sucked. And there was also some mistiming with the finish here where Razor clearly had enough time to go in and break up the pinfall attempt. Yet for some reason, Razor decided to try to run halfway across the ring before sliding in to try to break up the count. So he was late by 1.5 miles. He actually did still almost break up the count anyway. So that was a bit awkward. but the heels retain the straps. A very lame, boring title match here to open the show, I noted. Which is exactly what I was expecting Dean Douglas to say during the report card segment afterwards. But no. In fact, he provided us with some real eye-opening evaluation here. A very sports-like coverage, if you will. First, he explained the definition of teamwork. That was where I learned that the word synchronicity was actually still a term in the English language. And then he started tearing into Savio and Razor for being horrible teammates. Because during the heat portion of that tag match we just saw, Dean Douglas correctly points out, while the heels are beating up Razor, Savio is standing on the opposite end of the ring, distracting the official, allowing for his partner to be savagely beaten and left for the dogs. A very valid point. How stupid of Savio to intentionally divert the ref's attention away from the action to allow his partner to be double-teamed in the opposite corner. What a stupid babyface. So he gave the match a double T grade, specifically calling Razor and Savio a terrible twosome. Got to admit, I think I'm kind of starting to dig these report card sketches. They're dumb. They're hokey as fuck. But they are at least mildly amusing at times. Especially when Dean is calling out legit stupidity in a match that everybody can plainly see. Such as Savio intentionally allowing his partner to get beat up by two heels. Like a complete dolt. Moving on. Isaac Yankem did x-rays. Ineffectively, I should point out. I have seen this setup for standard x-rays when I go to the dentist. It is a little more complex than just having the patient open his mouth and then moving the light source around a couple of times. But we're not going to blame Glenn for that one. And then following what I believe was the third consecutive anti-Dave McCormick commercial on Peacock, we saw the in-ring debut of Fatu under the new Street Preacher gimmick. He wrestled Tony DeVito. The moment we all knew the gimmick was doomed to fail, watching Fatu wrestle with a beanie. Also, him wearing god-ugly ring tights that had the phrases, "Say no to bullies," and "Finish school" on them. I know this may constitute gimmick infringement. I'm going to say it anyway. This gimmick, no buys. Crowd was utterly silent. Fatu won with a Superfly splash. Nothing to add. Sucked. That was then followed by a SummerSlam card update, which I was about to skip over entirely. However, I had to stop myself about midway through, because this is where we found out that apparently, for reasons that were not thoroughly explained, Gorilla Monsoon is now filling in as interim president of the WWF. Not as a full-time replacement for Jack Tunney, because as Monsoon stated himself here, I don't want to deal with corporate politics, and I don't want to be around more than necessary. That was almost a direct quote. Even Gorilla Monsoon realized what a shitstorm this program was. He said, "I do not want to be around more than I need to be." And again, There have been so many flip-flops with GMs and presidents and on-air authority figures over the years. I've never been good at tracking timelines of who the dudes in charge were during these periods. I mean, the turnover was ridiculous. I do know that Jack Tunney's involvement with the WWF does eventually go to shit when Vince cut ties with him, because they worked together in the Toronto office for years, which is where Tunney was stationed. I guess it happened a lot sooner than I remember, because we have seen less and less of Jack Tunney as an on-air personality. You know, remember back in 93 and even bits and pieces of last year, we would see Jack Tunney on the show in some capacity, mostly to make announcements or be heavily involved in the major title programs. I mean, I can't remember the last time we saw Jack Tunney on the show. It's been ages. So this may have been the period where Tunney was blackballed. Once Vince cut ties with Tunney, he was gone from the wrestling business altogether. That was kind of the end of him. So the gorilla thing was sort of a kayfabe explanation to give the program some kind of authority figure, I guess. I still love how he had to explicitly say, "I'm only a filler GM. I'm not planning to be a full-time cutthroat dictator. I want to be a fan-friendly, neutral GM." Gorilla Monsoon. Of all people. So then we had Kama getting a squash win over Troy Haste, which is not entirely all that interesting. I did get some mild enjoyment out of hearing Vince and Jerry talk to Sid on the phone. Like on the screen cap, it just read, "On the phone, Sid." Not Sid Vicious. Not Psycho Sid. Sid. Like they were talking to some 9-year-old in Delaware or something. He informed us that he's not happy that Gorilla is the new interim GM of Raw. I was also reminded during this segment, not only do the two zombie plants at ringside still exist all these months later, it also made me realize this Undertaker feud is still going. Has there ever once been an explanation for the two stone-faced plants? Like, okay, I get it. The shit is fake. I know I'm not supposed to think about it too much. But are we really supposed to believe, in storyline, the WWF is flying around these two to just sit in the front row and not move? And to only appear during Kama matches? Because that's the only time they ever put the camera on them. For all we know, they could just be sitting there for the entire length of the show. It's so stupid. And the announcers never mention anything about it aside from, oh, we got a couple Undertaker fans in the front row there. Not even going to mention that it's the same two freak shows every fucking time. This show sucks dick. Speaking of things that suck dick, this main event, Mo versus Diesel. Holy shit, this was awful. More awful than those Shawn Michaels t-shirts they were trying to plug that had all the catchphrases on them. Those things look tacky as fuck. I even remember thinking when they announced this match the other week, I'm like, Mo versus Diesel in the advertised main event? That sounds hideous. And it was pretty much exactly what I figured it'd be. I mean, Mo was at least trying. But he and Diesel looked like two deer on ice skates in there trying to coordinate shit. They somehow managed to fuck up an Irish whip spot where Diesel completely whiffed a big boot on Mo. Barely even connected. They also had this laughable break spot with Mabel and Shawn. So Mabel comes down to try to get in Diesel's face. So obviously that means Shawn has to come down to be the difference maker. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to believe in any sane universe that Shawn Michaels would be able to get Mabel to back down from a fight. Let me repeat that. Shawn fucking Michaels got Mabel to back off. The pipsqueak Pomeranian got the Rottweiler to back away like a coward. Laughable. So the match continues. Diesel made a short comeback. It looked very sloppy. As normal, he nearly fucks up giving the guy his finish. Yet somehow nobody dies in the process. And Diesel wins. At which point Mabel hits the ring to attack Diesel. But Shawn drop kicks him out of the floor. And as Shawn tries to springboard onto Mabel, he gets caught. Mabel drives Shawn into the ring post. And from there, the heels bail with Diesel trying to help Shawn to his feet to end the show. You know, it's one of those things where you look back at this period, realizing SummerSlam was way later in the month. I mean, I still have a hard time getting used to WWE doing SummerSlam in late July, early August. There's something about the timing of it that seems wrong. I always thought it should be approaching September when they air SummerSlam. But we got a few more weeks before 1995 SummerSlam. Boy, howdy, am I dreading that review when we get to it. I mean, they've done everything but crossing the T's and dotting the I's when it comes to the build. I think they've already announced all the core matches, including the ladder match with Shawn and Razor, which again is something that just sort of happened with no rhyme or reason again. It was, they had a great match at WrestleMania 10 the previous year, so let's do it again. This time it's SummerSlam. And the more they keep having Diesel and Mabel square off, the more my butt cheeks clench, dude. Thinking about me having to review that monstrosity. Good Lord. So as we move to NXT here, diving right in with the action in this number one contenders tag tournament. A tournament, by the way, that we had no brackets for to indicate who was wrestling or how many teams were even in the thing to begin with, which is a total WWE move. Let's just book a tournament with mystery brackets that are never explained. That'll make the people care. As of last week, the only team we even knew that was a part of this thing was Bold Dempsey and Mojo Rawley. At least they partially attempted to explain how that team came about, even though it was still haphazardly thrown together. Apparently Shawn Spears and Jason Jordan are still a team, though. What happened to the story follow-up with Spears getting kidnapped by Adam Rose and the Rosebuds? Didn't Jordan come out a few weeks ago and talk about how his partner was missing? And he tried to put the blame on Adam Rose? Kind of turning heel in the process with no justification? Well, apparently Shawn Spears was found. And there was zero follow-up explanation as to what happened to him. WWE dropping storylines for no discernible reason. Another 2014 move. So the match is Jordan and Spears versus Enzo and Big Cass. Enzo informed us here that he and Cass are stars. Therefore, they take media showers. Crafty. He is still 1,000% more comfortable on the mic than Cass was around this point, who literally spoke as if he had a gun held to the back of his head. Complete deer in the headlights. Sounding totally scripted. I mean, the match was nothing to write home about, but it was fine. Heels worked over Cass for a hot minute. Enzo made a very short, goofy-looking babyface comeback before Dillinger super kicked the shit out of him. Sort of like he was dead. And then the heels wasted time taunting Cass on the apron. So when Jordan went to shoulder thrust Enzo in the corner, Cass threw himself in harm's way. And while the ref was dealing with Dillinger, Cass booted Jordan in the face while he was holding up Enzo. And then Enzo's dead body fell on top of Jordan's dead body for the fluke pin. It's, I mean, this was always kind of a recurring theme with Enzo Cass matches. If they ever did give Enzo the win, they would typically do stuff similar to this where they would try to make it look somewhat believable. Because in all honesty, you know, a guy Enzo's size really shouldn't be pinning Jason Jordan clean. So they at least gave the heels some kind of outing here. I was fine with the booking. And we did eventually get a glimpse of the actual brackets post-match, which still infuriated me. How they waited until after a first-round match to actually show the fucking brackets. But better late than never. So in this tournament, we have the following teams. 8 teams altogether. It is Enzo and Cass, Jason Jordan and Ty Dillinger, who just got eliminated, Mojo Rawley and Bull Dempsey, the Vaudevillains, Sami Zayn and question mark, which is hilarious. Let's book Sami Zayn in a tag team tournament, but not actually assign him a partner. We'll figure that one out later. We had Tyson Kidd and Justin Gabriel, Sin Cara and Kalisto, and the eventual bane of everybody's existence, the interchangeable geek tag team of Blake and Murphy, wherein the only time the team was remotely over was when Alexa Bliss was their eye candy. So, well, that's the updated tournament. No FTR. Or the Mechanics, as they were known around this point. Yeah, couldn't give those two a spot in the tournament. But Sami Zayn and a mystery unidentified partner, they're the perfect fit. And actually, we did find out who Sami's partner was in the following pre-tape. It was Adam Rose, who voluntarily stepped up and said, "I'll team with you, Sami." And apparently that was okay. Management had no issue with this. And then Adam gave Sami a lollipop, which Sami actually put inside of his mouth and sucked on. Gay. So then CJ Parker came out to lecture us about fracking, to which I immediately said, "Oh, frack, no." And I skipped ahead like 30 seconds. Xavier Woods eventually interrupted. "Yes, this feud is still going on. No, it's still not over." More specifically, CJ Parker is still not over. It is kind of funny listening to Matt Bloom nickname Xavier X-Man Come on, X. Let's go, X-Man. And, like, that's what really sucks about the feud. You could tell the people really want to root for Xavier. He's a likable guy. He's got fire. He's got passion. He has the ability to make people care about everything he does. But then the people realize he's in there wrestling C.J. Parker. He's like, ugh. And it's not a knock against the guy. I think Juice Robinson's a really talented dude. He took part in probably the best series of tag matches I've seen in years when he and Jay White were wrestling FTR. That shit was great. But this fucking hippy-dippy retro 70s gimmick, God, it was death TV. And everybody knew it. Like the minute CJ cut off Xavier at the end and gave him that crappy-looking fireman's carry slam, it just killed the crowd when he pinned Xavier. Everybody was getting behind him. They wanted to see the X-Man go over. And then he lost. Because they just refused to give up on the CJ Parker gimmick. They are riding and dying this mofo to the bitter end. Oh, yeah. And on the topic of gimmicks that were death TV, Tyler Breeze let us know that he's officially challenging Adrian Neville for the NXT title. He also referred to the fans as Want to Breeze followers. Cringe. Absolute cringe. And then we had an all-time terrible goddamn segment. One of those segments where you know it's going to be terrible before the bell even sounds. You know what your expectations are. And it still manages to be 10 times worse than you initially expect. I made a passing joke a few weeks back about that girl that used to wrestle in NXT, whose name I can never remember. The girl whose gimmick was that she sucked and everybody hated her because she actually sucked and was the drizzling shits in the ring. Well, the name finally came up again because she wrestled on TV this week. Eva Marie. A name that should be tossed into the memory hole and never spoken of again. First of all, let us answer the obvious question that everybody has. Who the fuck was Eva Marie? Well, I'm glad you asked. Remember the TV drama series Total Divas? The one that starred the Bella Sluts? Well, Eva Marie was also a main character on that show. Character in quotations. If her wrestling ability was anything like her acting ability, I imagine it was equally horrible trying to watch her on that program as well. No idea where they found her, but I don't put anything past Johnny Ace and or Vince McMahon when it comes to browsing catalogs for swimsuit models. She had absolutely zero in-ring skill. To refer to her as an athlete of any description would be blasphemy. The fans immediately showered her with "you can't wrestle" chants. Which makes me think she was already on the main roster working matches by this period. God bless the poor souls that had to endure that. She wrestled Bayley. And let me tell you, folks, that was an experience. I can't even really call it a wrestling match in good conscience because I would be giving it too much credit. It was something resembling Bayley trying to wrestle an immobile corpse. They did some chain stuff early on, and If you can just picture in your head the visual of that Jenna Maraska-Charamel match from TNA, since I know that's kind of the standard when it comes to all-time horrible women's matches. Okay, picture that match in your head, but it's a 5-star classic compared to the shit we saw here. I have no idea what Eva Marie was attempting to do. She could not bump. She could not sell. She walked to hit the ropes. She was so unathletic, she could not even casually jog. At the singular point in the match where Eva royally fucked up an O'Connor roll, Matt Bloom had the balls to casually chime in on commentary with, "No, Eva Marie's getting a lot better." I began sweating profusely. I was like, a lot better? Better than what? A paraplegic and an iron lung? Every so often, whenever Eva had no idea how to take a move or sell anything, she would just casually grab the side of her neck like she had a fucking cramp. Just kind of clutching it like,
ow, ow, I'm a little sore over here.
And eventually Bayley won with the belly-to-belly. How? This did not win worst match of the year, or at least be in strong consideration for it, I will never know. It was... I know I constantly like to steal Jim Cornette's catchphrases, but the one thing I hear him constantly talk about when he reviews really bad matches, he says, "I would not have let that air on OVW back in the day." That's what blows my mind. This was taped. They could have left this out. This did not have to air. But they left it in anyway. They said, this will be perfectly fine to air to the public. How bad could it possibly be? Well, it was bad. Putrid. Unreal. I would encourage you to see it if you're in the mood for torturing yourself. Eva Marie versus Bayley on the August 7, 2014 edition of NXT. View at your own risk. God, this is terrible. Main event. We've already arrived. Yeah, looking back, there really wasn't a whole lot happening on this show, was there? I don't think I skipped over a whole lot. Maybe I did. Who knows? Anyway, it's Tyson Kidd and Justin Gabriel versus Sami Zayn and mystery partner Adam Rose, who apparently could just magically insert himself into a tournament to crown number one contenders for title belts. And, oddly enough, they're still a more believable tag team than Blake and Murphy. I can tell you one thing. The Ascension were shaking in their boots at the idea of having to wrestle Sami Zayn and Adam Rose. This guy likes lollipops. That's weird, man. We don't want to mess with that jabroni. So this match was odd. Odder than the bulk of Adam Rose's mannerisms. During the heat portion of the match, if you want to call it that, they're working over Adam Rose, and the crowd, dude, I don't even know how to describe the eerie silence throughout the room. Like, I don't know if you could hear that right now. In the background. Crickets. That's what's going on outside my window right now. That's what it sounded like. You could hear a pin drop. It was so silent. It sounded like everybody was sitting in church. Nobody reacted to anything. It was a really strange 3 or 4 minute period where the heels are beating up on Adam Rose. Everybody's sitting around patiently waiting for Sami to get the hot tag. There's no sense of urgency to it. And eventually Sami gets in there. They do their big series of dive spots at the end, which, of course, everybody popped for. Rose gave a flipping senton onto everybody and then smacked his tailbone off the guardrail. That had to have sucked. And then Sami eventually hit Gabriel with a haluva kick for the 3. So Adam Rose has now advanced in a tournament that he has now arbitrarily placed himself in. And Sam is apparently okay with all this. Going into the show, he had no idea that Adam Rose was going to be his partner. He's like, fuck it, dude. I'll team with the guy. If it means I get to be a champion in NXT, cool. Those are some low standards, brah. Honestly, though, it's kind of all there is to say about it. I still have no idea who winds up winning this tournament. I went back and looked over the brackets again. I mean, none of these teams should believably beat the Ascension. Based on booking alone, it would kind of lead me to think Enzo and Cass get the title shot. But again, who knows? I mean, I'm still not even really sure if the Ascension are babyfaces or heels by this point. So we'll just see how things trudge along in the timeline. Overall, the show wasn't horrible. Discounting that Eva Marie match. That was brutal in every serviceable manner. But extract that from the conversation. They had a lot of wrestling this week. The tournament kind of took center stage, which is all right. At least we know Neville's next challenger for the NXT title. The opponent I'm not all that excited to see. Yet, somehow this whole thing ends up leading to that 4-way at Takeover. And that just boggles my mind. How in the world we go from Sami teaming with Adam Rose to getting Neville, Breeze, Kid, and Zayn in a 4-way for the belt in a month? Probably the same way we got Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels in a rematch for the IC title at SummerSlam 95. Even though there was no story reason to do it. Aside from, they tore the house down the previous year having a ladder match. So let's book it again and see if we can capture lightning in a bottle twice. Spoiler, I do not think the 4-way at Takeover was as good as the ladder match with Shawn and Razor at SummerSlam. Could be proven wrong. But I am not holding my breath. So, yeah. That's the podcast I like to see. Lengthy. A lot of stuff we covered this week. And we are going to have a Friday show this week, so make sure you guys come back to check out that one. More coverage in the classic content. I'm glad to be back. Glad to keep things rolling here on the channel. A small, minute little wrestling channel here, but I'm still having fun doing it. So we're going to keep going with it. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll catch you all soon. Take care. Peace out.